for the live stream. So that's just my speakers. We were 1 second. We're checking the audio in this room really quickly. Great. All right. We are good to get started. I did send out the agenda to everyone this morning. I can also pull it up, and Heaven, if you would like to get us started, we can go.
All right. Welcome to the first meeting for 2024 Passive Recreation Land. I am your chair, Kevin Conracode. Today is a virtual meeting, so we'll attempt to not stumble over each other, but if we can just allow for a moment of silence, and then the next folk can come in and introduce themselves.
I'm Ann Babcock, a member of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Bob Gale, member of the Land Conservation Advisory Board.
Matt Fusco, Land Conservation Advisory Board.
Hey, Ellie Howell, I'm met that Advisory Board.
And then I think that is everyone on the subcommittee, but I'm Jill Carter. I am the secretary for the subcommittee.
I'm Tom.
All right, that's good. Oh.
Principal Park Planner with Buncombe County.
Good to have you on. And hello, everybody. First order of action will be to approve the agenda for today's meeting, and the second will be to approve the December's notes. Bob, if you could second that for me, it'd be appreciated.
Sure. Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes from last meeting, December 2023, say aye.
Aye.
All right, and all in favor of approving the January 2024 agenda, say aye.
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 Excellent. All right, we have the formalities out of the way. Jill, do you want to take us away with the update on the current status of the bonds?
Yes, I certainly can. So just to give a little, I guess, brief, today's meeting is mostly going to be like logistical related items, as you can see on the agenda. We just want to make sure that we are all set for starting the new year. But as a quick update on where things stand with the open space bond and the process, the application window for passive recreation lands officially opened today. So we should, I know, very exciting. Thank you all for your hard work in helping put together the application and the guidelines and the scoring rubric. You guys were instrumental in getting that done. So now we can start seeing applications roll in. And in addition to that, we attended the grants fair last week that was held here at 200 College in Asheville. And that had a really great attendance. I know Anne was there and was able to see it, but there was a ton of people showed up. I think over 100 people showed up, if I remember correctly. Yeah, and a lot of people came and talked to me about the bond, got to learn about some new interesting programs that hopefully people will be applying from those programs. But there was a lot of interest in the passive recreation application window. So a big thank you to the strategic partnerships team who helped put that together. It was really great. And like I said, we should start seeing applications rolling in the next month or so. The application deadline, or I'll go over the process actually. I think that's my next slide. Yeah. So in terms of where we go now that the application window is open, the application window is going to be open for the next 2.5 months. The deadline is currently stated as March 31st. Also, please feel free to stop me and ask questions if you guys have. But I wanted to take a minute to just review this process for the project review and selection and answer any questions you guys might have, as well as specifically talk about this subcommittee review piece, and hopefully get y'all's thoughts more on what you would like your role in the review. You know what your role is, but what you would like the presentations and the site visits to look like so that they are most helpful to you all. But in terms of the process itself, once that deadline passes on March 31st, the initial step for proposal review will be the scoring committee. The scoring committee, as we've talked about before, is made up of county staff members. We have 5 members on that committee. We have an individual from the planning department, an individual from the general services and maintenance department, a person from Parks and Recreation, a person from Ag and Land Resources, and an individual from our Human Rights and Equity team within the county. Those individuals will be reviewing the proposals and scoring them against that scoring rubric that we've reviewed. And they'll be, and the scores will be averaged. So this subcommittee will be able to see both the average scores across the proposals, and if you'd like to, you can also see, what the individual scores were. And then the next phase after that scoring committee review will be for the subcommittee. So what we've kind of talked about before, and again, I want to hear y'all's thoughts on what would be most helpful to you in performing that review, is we'll get these scores from the scoring committee for all of the different proposals that meet the eligibility requirements. And then I will be developing a score report. And so there will basically be like one report that you guys will get that have the different proposals that met the eligibility requirements, what their scores were on the different criteria items, and just like a brief overview of the project itself. And then the subcommittee will be able to make decisions on which projects you guys would like to visit further and do the presentations and the site visits. But yeah, so that's kind of the first piece of where the subcommittee will come in the review process. So on that kind of score report, I did want to hear from you all if kind of that overview of what would be included sounds good to you, if there's additional information you want to hear about all of the projects before you decide which ones to dig into further, or any other thoughts you have on that item.
Jill?
Yep.
I was wondering, I don't know whether this is proper or not, but since it's going to be another month before we meet again, I'm wondering if you could keep us posted over that period, like maybe once a week, just review who you've gotten applications from and what it's for, with no details, just general information about what's coming in. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I think that would be fine. I will say that I anticipate that we'll probably be getting most of the proposals coming in later February and March timeframe. I imagine that people are probably going to want to spend as much time as they can on developing their proposals. But I can certainly keep you guys updated on what is coming in. I just anticipate there probably won't be a lot coming in until at least February.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as what if we want any more information or anything, I guess once we see the proposals, that will lead us to have maybe a question and say, hey, can we dig a little deeper into this one and get the background of this particular score or whatever. Maybe that would be my answer to your statement, Jill, your question.
Okay, I think so. What I was envisioning for kind of the score report would have, the project title for all of the proposals that we received. There'd be like one report that you guys would receive that has the project title, who is the applicant, a description of the project, and then the scores that the project received on the different criteria. And then based on that, you guys would be able to have the opportunity to say, we want to dig more into these projects. But is there more information in that report itself that would help you make that decision? Or do you just, want the opportunity to have that really broad overview and dig into anything that strikes your fancy?
I guess the only thing that occurs to me is just, but I think that will be there, and it will certainly be there in the when we start looking closely, is just the background of the entity making the request, just to sort of kind of get an idea how solid they are or how fly by night they are, that sort of thing. But I don't know.
Sure. I can definitely provide more of like a applicant profile in that score report.
Sure. That's all I can think of.
Perfect. And if it's helpful for this subcommittee, before you actually get the score report itself with all the information completed, I can do like a mock-up of the report and send it to all of you, and you can let me know if you think that's going to be sufficient or if you want more information included.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great idea. But I have a feeling that what you're going to submit is going to be satisfactory, at least to me.
I appreciate your confidence, Bob. Okay, perfect. Well, then for the score report, you guys will hopefully be getting that in early May. I want to give the scoring committee the month of April to be able to review the proposals and assign the scores. I don't want to make them feel rushed during that time period. So they'll have their time to review and score. I will I'll put together the score report and get that to all of you in early May. And then we can use the May meeting for y'all to review the score report, have your discussion on which projects you would like to review further. And then in May to June, I was anticipating that's when we would probably have the site visits and the presentations for those projects you want to dig into further. As we discussed previously, for the site visits, not all of you have to be there at every site visit, as long as we have at least one or two representatives from the subcommittee who can attend the site visit and report back. But does that 2-month period feel sufficient for that part of the review, or do we think we need more time?
I think it looks.
That really comes down to how many applicants we have, I believe.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
And we can certainly make it like a game time decision. In the application guidelines, I just said that, we were hoping to do project selection in the summer, so we can kind of push that back to say September is also included in the summertime, if we need to as well. And I think for anything, as long as we're very transparent, if we need more time for the review process and we can't do project selection until the fall, I think that should be okay. We just, like I said, need to be transparent about that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
For the site visits and the presentations, I guess, again, I can create like a mock-up for what kind of information we would ask the applicants to provide in the presentations. But I wanted to first chat with you all and see if you had any initial thoughts or questions about that piece.
I'll say that on the Land Conservation Advisory Board, the Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy and Conserving Carolina and Riverlink have really got those presentations down, to a science pretty well. They give the information we've needed. And so if you were to look at one of those, if there's a way of looking at a video of one of those presentations, if there are such videos, or if there's, one coming up at a future meeting, it would be good maybe to just look at that and see how everything they present is just well done, concise. And of course, Highlands has the most, they're the oldest, has the most experience, and but all of them do a good job. So I can't think of, they just go over every part that you could possibly want to know and manage to do that in a short presentation, like 10 or 15 minutes usually, something like that. So that's about all I can add.
I can definitely get the recordings from some of the LCAB meetings, and I'll chat with the Ag and Land team to see if they have recommendations of which recent meetings have, really good presentations that we can look at. And once I get those recordings, I can share it with you all as well. And if you want to review them and you have thoughts about how the presentations go and the information that was provided, you can also share that with me.
And Jill, we'll have the presentation that's coming up for the board funds from Southern App. Excuse me, for the bond funds. That will probably be a very similar format.
That's
to what Bob's suggesting.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. I forgot to mention that altogether. So that is a great point as well. Kind of a broader update on the bond itself. We have 2 conservation easement projects that are going to be coming before the commissioners in February for hopeful approval. And to Jennifer's point, Southern Appalachian is presenting for one of those easements. And so I can share that presentation as well. And you guys can see what things look like from the LCAB side.
I have a couple of comments, Jill, and you may have
Sure.
already thought of this, so if you have, just ignore my comments. But on the site visit side of things, have you thought about whether commissioners would want to do site visits to any of these or not?
I had not thought into that. I think it would make sense to have a commissioner or more attend the site visits so that they know what's being considered, and when the projects come before the commissioners, they have like more of a tangible insight into what the project looks like.
Yeah, and I don't know how that looks, whether it's like a commissioner is assigned a specific project or whatever, so that at least there's one representative at each site visit. So there's like somebody to speak to the project. I think that might just garner a lot more buy-in. And then my other comment is just the timeline looks good to me, but just remember it is election year. So we talked about pushing back a little bit, but I would try to stick to this as much as possible, because I see if it creeps backward, then maybe wanting to postpone it even further to get the new folks in there or not. I don't know how that shakes out. It's just a real thing that is happening this year. So those are my only.
That is a really great point. Thank you for that reminder, Thomas. I was not thinking of that. So that is important. So yeah, I think to Thomas's point, trying to keep to the summertime for project selection/announcement would be ideal. If we
Yeah, that is a good point. The first point, I don't, in all the years, really commissioners haven't to my recollection, expressed any interest in going on the site visits. I feel like Terry Wells came on one that was in her neck of the woods, and she knew the people and all. But if I'm not mistaken, but I really, in the ones I attended, I can't remember any commissioners showing an interest to coming, but they may want to, and they certainly should be welcomed to. But that's all I can give you there.
Yeah. It might be the case that we can float the idea / the invitation by the commissioners, and they can decide if it's something that they want to do or not. I do think, though, if we would want it to be standardized, I would anticipate, like, we wouldn't want there to be 1 or 2 site visits where commissioners attend, but then other site visits where commissioners don't attend. I think that could be, that would not be very fair. So I think we can float the idea by the commissioners and ask if they would want to attend the site visits. And if they are interested, then I can help coordinate and make sure that we have at least 1 representative from the commission at each site visit.
Yeah, it was definitely never standardized with LCAB.
Yeah. I know. I think we're trying for the bond. There's a lot of public attention to it, obviously. So
yeah,
they might want to attend, they might not want to attend, but we'll see.
That's right.
Okay, perfect. Any other thoughts on the presentations and site visits at this point? No. Okay. Great. Then I will build this timeline out a bit more, and I will, like I said, I'll have kind of a mock-up of that score report and the information to be included in the presentations. And I can plan to share that with all of you for the February meeting. And I will share those LCAB presentations with all of you this week so that you can review them and let me know your thoughts. And then just a last final note that once this subcommittee identifies which projects you want to recommend to receive funding, I will be presenting that information, or I guess this could be a question. Either I can present that recommendation to the Board of Commissioners for them to make the decision, or if the subcommittee itself would like to have a representative present that information, that is also an option. And you don't have to make that decision now, but just so you know, someone will have to present those projects to the Board of Commissioners, and they will make the vote to approve or not. Okay. So another piece that I just wanted to let you all know is coming up, and also see if you had any feedback or thoughts, is during the application window, we will be doing a webinar for applicants. That is going to be taking place on February 22nd at 2 p.m. I can send you the invitation if you would like it. But this is kind of the overall agenda of information that I'm going to be covering at that webinar. My draft agenda of information I'll be covering. The main purpose of this webinar is really for people who, process information better when someone is speaking it to them. I'll be covering a lot of the information that we have in the guidelines. I'll also be able to dig a little bit deeper into kind of the purpose of the bond and why we are opening this application window for passive recreation lands projects. I'll be covering the eligibility requirements and what that means for the people interested in applying. I'll also be covering that evaluation criteria and be able to talk through, some examples of what those items can look like. And then talking about the application process itself. As you guys know, we have an online grant portal that we are encouraging applicants to submit their proposals through. So I want to use this time to kind of walk them through what that portal looks like, troubleshoot any issues people may be running into as they've been building their applications. And then finally just talk about what the review and selection process before opening the floor to general questions. So this webinar is going to be recorded as well, and so we can also share it with people who weren't able to attend it. But the purpose of this is really to be supportive to the applicants, help them know with all the information they may need to feel successful and empowered in building their proposal. So if you guys have any thoughts on what might be missing or what I can really dig into during that webinar so that I can be as useful to the applicants as possible, please throw it at me.
It looks like you have all the bases covered. What was the date of that application webinar? Date and time?
It's February 21st, which is a Wednesday, and the time is 2 p.m. So it's a webinar, so it'll be held virtually. But you guys are welcome to listen in if you'd like to. Any other thoughts, questions? Okay. And you guys, of course, as always, can feel free if anything does come up, and you are, hopefully not thinking about this at 2 a.m. in the morning when you can't sleep. But if you are and you're like, this would be great for Jill to talk about at the webinar, please feel free to just reach out and I can make sure that is covered.
Jill, I have a quick question. Every copy that we've gotten of the application and the scoring rubric has had draft written on it.
Yes.
Are we at the point where it's finalized now?
Yes. So it's finalized. I can send, there haven't been, other than maybe some copy editing, there hasn't been any major changes since the draft that you all received after our December meeting. But I can send you the final PDF version as well.
Okay.
And while we're encouraging applicants to use the online portal, there are print copies of the application and the guidelines available at 200 College in the county management office, which is suite 300. So if anyone does want like an actual physical copy or wants to submit their application physically, they can do that. Okay. So the last thing that I had on the main presentation agenda for today was to talk about our meeting schedule for this year, and make sure that there weren't any needed changes. We are continuing with the third Tuesday of the month at 12 p.m., which is these dates reflected here. Does that still work well for this group? Or do we need to adjust the recurring schedule? And then another thing I wanted to talk about is, after the project selection is completed, this subcommittee probably does not need to meet on a monthly basis until the next application window comes up. So we might want to consider adjusting the calendar for like the second or for the fall and winter time. But curious as to your thoughts.
I think it's a good idea if there's not an agenda to discuss. Sort of earlier this fall, we had taken similar steps where we didn't have any agenda for a meeting, so we canceled it a month ahead of time. As we get to a point where we're just waiting for applicants, if the remainder of the board is okay with it, we could remove the meetings that no longer look productive. Yeah, anyone opposed to that method?
No. Yeah, this schedule is okay with me. Still on Tuesdays. As it happens, I'm going to be out of town next month from the 19th to the 22nd. I will read any report you might send, should you send one, Jill, but I'll be out of pocket for trying to attend a meeting that particular in February.
So
Be out of town too.
you'll be out of town. So I will say, since the two items we had talked about reviewing at the February meeting were the score report and the presentation outline, I guess. And those wouldn't even be necessary until the end of March anyways. We could potentially say we want to skip the February meeting and review those at the March meeting, if that works for the group.
Better for me.
Sure.
Is there any concern about? Sorry.
I was just going to put it up to a vote and
Yeah.
say all in favor of the proposed elimination of February and move to March, correct?
Yes, correct.
We should
So
probably
all in
have some
favor, say
information
aye.
on
Aye.
Aye.
that. Do we
And-
motion, then second, then vote?
Certainly, Matt, would you like to second that?
I'll second it, yeah. Just,
Okay. And any opposed to canceling the February meeting? Okay, Jill, it sounds like that's an acceptable plan to move forward with.
Great. Then thank you all for that. I will send meeting invitations for the other meetings. I'll probably just do through June for now. And so we can revisit the second half of the year based on anticipated need. But I'll send the invitations for March through June and get those on your calendar. All right. And then that was everything I had for my presentation. So we can, unless there's other questions, we can move forward through the agenda. Sounds like no questions. So Kevin, would you like to lead us through the rest of the agenda?
Could you bring that up again on your screen?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Appreciate it.
Certainly do that. Next is public comment.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments they would like to make, or is this the public comment period for the criteria?
This is the public comment period just as part of our open process. So usually I ask Catalina, do we have anyone online from the community? Okay, so we don't have anyone from the public here to comment, so we can move forward from that.
Okay. Well, if there is no more agenda to be brought forth, I motion that we adjourn the meeting.
second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks,
All right.
everyone.